What's going on, Fantasy Kingdom? Welcome back to the Fantasy Kings podcast. I'm your host, Peez, and I'm joined by my co-host, Carlito, and our EP, the executive producer, BeepCount. What's going on, fellas? How you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Peezy? How you doing, BeepCount?
What's up, boys? How you doing? Good to see you.
Likewise.
Doing well. We got a great episode for you guys today. We're going to be going over the Kings and Jokers from last week, as well as our top targets for the waiver wire for heading into week 3. So that's what we've got. Collin, why don't you get us started off Carlito's way with your quarterback king?
I will start off with the one and only Jared Goff, who I dropped because I
told you not to. I told you not to.
It's true, and I normally don't like going against my advice, but I would be remiss if I didn't do that all the time. I carried 2 quarterbacks on this team. I had 2 in Goff. Tua blew up week 1. I was like, okay, he's looking good. Let's roll with him, drop Goff. And then what happens? Clearly Goff goes off and he looked good, and he could have probably actually had a little bit more, I would say points, because they kind of dropped the ball towards the end, but Goff is definitely a stud last week for week 2.
You know what the G in Goff stands for? Goes off.
Yeah, and I didn't get to benefit from it, but it's all good. So I think he did great, and I think he's going to be also pretty good consistently. I think he may have a few games throughout the season where he's not so good, but overall, from what I'm seeing in that offense and their schedule, I think he's going to consistently be in the top tier of QBs.
With Goff, man, it's really about if he's playing in a dome, start him. And all of his home games are in domes. And then if he's playing in good weather, start him. It's where he's outside and it's windy where it gets a little tricky. But yeah, I mean, I try to tell you, you don't listen to the Peez. That's how you fill up on D's.
And what about you? And who would be your joker for the week? For the king for the week.
Yeah, my king for the week, I got to be fair. Last week I trashed Josh Allen for all of his turnovers. This week he had a bounce back week, 3 touchdowns. 274 yards, didn't turn the ball over. They got a big win. They were playing against the Raiders, but still, he cleaned it up. We'll see how often he can keep it that way. But, Josh Allen's getting the nod this week. He had a great game.
Yeah, you are consistent on that. You did say it wasn't going to be a down year. You just said that, to be wary of him, of, drafting him, depending on how much you spend or your ADP. But yeah, I think good call there. A joker for me, for QBs, then, let's go back to, a player that I have plenty of shares. And then honestly, I'm super high on. I've been hyping him up too. I've been on the hype train a little bit, is Trevor Lawrence. He was a joker in week 2. He didn't do well. I thought that they were going to win that game easily, and boy, was I wrong. Cost me money as well. So he did not look good. He didn't really have any, playmaking abilities for some good points. So he was a joker for week 2, unfortunately for me.
Well, we got to break that down a little bit because, I don't know what to tell you. If you thought the Jaguars were going to beat the Chiefs easily, that's a flawed mental process.
I was hoping that you were going to say something, but I did think that was that they were going to go in. I don't know what happened. I for whatever reason, I think that the Chiefs defense is not pretenders. It looks like they're contenders and legit. I thought that the noise of Chris Jones coming back, like, hey, he may do all right, but no, he did good. And they did not look good. They looked flustered. It actually looks like the defense is the shining star of the Chiefs these days.
Yeah, man, I think the Chiefs defense is for real. So, Trevor Lawrence didn't have a great game. The thing that really hurt his production is he was 0 for 7 in the red zone, and you got to convert those, right? That's like third down in the red zone is where you make your money, and he just couldn't get it going. Now, part of that was, I think the Chiefs are starting to see some real big return on their investment for the draft capital they've spent on their defense, as well as Chris Jones being back in the mix. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence had a disappointing week, but I'm still high on him for the season.
Well, right, here's one thing you got to consider with Trevor Lawrence. Next week, he's going against the Houston Texans, who last year held him to 438 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions in 2 meetings. So
yep. And
you might want to stash him away for another week.
It's just so weird how randomly that stuff happens, like when like division opponents match up so well with each other, like with Joe Burrow and the Browns, right? Like I think Joe Burrow's beaten, it's like 1-7 against the Browns or something crazy like that, and it's just there's no real explanation for it because the Browns are the Browns, and everyone knows that the Bengals are a great team, and it's similar with Trevor Lawrence and what you were saying. It's just how does he not light this team up? And he just doesn't. Like
Right.
I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, let's move on. So my Joker quarterback was going to be Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr didn't have a bad game, but he didn't have a great game. And I think
no throwing touchdowns as well.
Yeah, no touchdowns. I don't remember how many yards he had. He was over 200 for sure, but he had a pick. And I was watching the game, and man, he missed a couple touchdowns, one to Olave that was he threw it too high and got Olave's bell rung. If he puts it on him, that's a touchdown and we're celebrating. And I, as a guy with a lot of Olave shares, believe me, I was stressed. So yeah, Derek Carr, I mean, he's a joker for this week just because he didn't get in the end zone, and that interception he threw was literally into triple coverage, which made no sense. So I think I think that David Carr going forward he's going to be fine. He's going to be between the 10th and the 12th best quarterback for fantasy purposes. You're not excited to start him, but you're not devastated either. And this week, finished under the 10-point mark, which as a quarterback, that's going to be a joker.
Right. I agree. I think I think he's more of a streaming or a plug and play QB anyway. So if you started him during this week, kind of got burned a little bit, but I think there's plenty of, right situations to plug him in.
Yeah. One guy I think we didn't even think about mentioning was Daniel Jones. He had 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, 60 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown as well. So that's
honorable mention. Yeah.
Honorable mention. Sure. And I understand he plays for the Giants, but we still got to put him out there, give him his flowers every once in a while.
Absolutely. We'll see if he can do that if Barkley is out this next weekend. I mean, Barkley just kind of really saved him on, one of those catches where he stretched out for a touchdown, bad throw. Barkley was just a freak of nature, made it happen. But yeah, you're right. Stud on that game. Lots of points in the second half, really.
Yeah, if you go down 20-0 to the Cardinals, you can't be a king in my book. I mean, I don't care if you came back.
Did he win?
He won.
Okay.
I think the Cardinals like, what the hell are we doing? We need to get Caleb Williams, and we can't do that if we win this game. And so they folded like the French army.
Right.
So with apologies to any of our friends in France. But yeah, so let's move on to the running backs. So my king this week for running back is going to be James Conner. He popped over 100 yards, had a touchdown. We're seeing a lot of work in the passing game as well. And, James Conner is a guy that, I talked about a lot in the preseason with he's just going to get the volume, right? Who else are they going to, who do the Cardinals have? And that paid off for people who took him this week. Like I said, busted over 100, got a touchdown. He was, their offense in the first half, like we were just saying, was looking really good. And he was getting some burst plays. So James Conner is a guy that you didn't have to spend a large amount of draft capital on. And so far he's paying off really well.
Yeah, because most people were passing him up. I mean, in every draft, I passed him up in every team of mine except for one. So I was happy to get his points. Good call out there. A king for me. I think a lot of people had high hopes for. Wasn't really like a streamer on the waiver wire or anything, but DeAndre Swift. Boy, did he look good with Kenneth Gainwell out for Philadelphia. And honestly, his big day was really filled with 175 rushing yards and a touchdown. Had it sprinkled in with a few catches as well, and some of those runs too. He got tackled earlier. He came close to 200. He was that good. And one thing to keep in mind is Is that going to be sustainable? Is it going to be, Kenneth Gainwell? Does he come back and eat into that? I mean, I don't know. It looks like it might just teeter-totter all year. But either way, whoever's getting the workload, so if these guys bounce back and forth, because DeAndre Swift is really normal. Normally I would say he misses, 4 to 6 games a year, right? So if you get any of those, I would say Gainwell is going to be the play. Then vice versa, if he's out, then DeAndre Swift's going to go bonkers. So kudos to him. He was the king for the week as far as running back for me.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I actually think that he might have won that backfield with that performance. Like the old NFL adage is, you can't lose your job to injury. Well, actually, you can. It happens all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we might have just seen it happen because he played so well in that game. And Detroit let him go to Philly. He came from Detroit. Philly brought him in for a reason, and he was looking solid. So I think he did a lot to maybe not completely kill the running back by committee in Philly, but really get a stranglehold on being like that 70 to 75% shareholder of the committee, because he's producing, and if you're producing and you stay producing, I mean, I think that could have been, if you have Swift on your team, you're feeling really good about yourself right now, because I think he played well enough to where he's going to be getting the majority of the carries and the work there. So something to ponder. Well, I guess we'll just see how that moves forward, but it was a very impressive game for him.
Definitely.
So my joker is going to be Dameon Pierce for the Texans. Not a great game. Again, he was kind of a victim to the game script, right? With, Houston had to turn to throwing the ball all the way around when they were down so much. And, CJ Stroud going for like 370. That was a lot of game script, but still early on when they weren't in a negative game script, he was not getting a lot of yards. He was I think his long was like a 6-yard carry, which, I mean, he's another guy. He was in that James Conner range where you weren't spending a lot of draft capital on him, but you were expecting a lot of volume. And this week the volume wasn't there and the efficiency wasn't there. So I'm going with Dameon Pierce as my joker for week dose.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I was also high on him all year. I was hoping I had more shares than the couple that I do have of him. But yeah, I don't know what it is, though, because, I mean, Stroud obviously looks better than Fields as far as throwing. It's not like they're stacking the box every single play, and they're not really worried about him so much. But I don't know if it was just the running lanes or the blocking or just – I don't know. I'm a little concerned, so we'll see if the volume or anything goes away. But good call out there. For my joker, I'm going to go with Joshua Kelly for one huge reason.
Killed me.
Oh yeah, he killed me. I mean, the dude did not look good, and I just don't understand where this is coming from, because Austin Eckler owners, I mean, they profited from week 1 huge. They're like, yeah, this is going to be this year. And people who was like, oh, I'm just going to handcuff Joshua Kelly, he's on the bench, and then see Eckler go out. I spent a lot of money in my fab budget for one of my leagues, and I'm thinking, oh, that's an automatic at least a double-digit day minimum. Like, I mean, I'm not expecting 30 points or 25 points like Eckler status. I mean, but the dude, it was, hovering between your league settings, doing 15 to 20 points just week 1 with Eckler playing. So with Eckler not playing, I mean, that game script, it wasn't even against him as far as, from a game script. So I don't know what happened there. It sucked. Eckler's going to be coming back. So everyone who thought that they were kind of fleecing, I would just say the market by scooping him up on waivers if they didn't already have him, definitely did not reap. Because he was basically in a starting lineup for me, and I had bench players in like every team, that outproduced that spot. So huge joker for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was killed. Now I'm going to push back on you a little bit, because the reports out today is there's not a timetable for Eckler's return, so we might miss a couple more weeks. So, with the amount of draft capital I use for Eckler, I really hope that's not the case. But like I said, maybe they're, I don't know what's going on. There's been no reporting outside of there's no timetable for return, which is very scary. And
Right.
Kelly,
We might have to check in with Austin Eckler's Instagram on like Thursday or something. Thursday or Friday. He's usually pretty good. He knows the fantasy community with his own podcast and all this stuff. So maybe he'll post saying, "Hey guys, I'm not playing. Get me out of your lineup." But that was also a great call out there.
Yeah. So that was a brutal because I picked him up too. I picked him up in the league where I have Eckler, and yeah, it was just brutal. But yeah, so that is it. Anything to add there, Beeper?
I'd say Breece Hall would be a pretty big joker. I mean, he had 9 yards on 4 carries, didn't catch his 2 targets. With as much support as the Jets are going to need from him, he did not carry the load there.
Yeah, he is definitely another joker. I think a lot of people are going to give Breece Hall a pass just because they were playing the Dallas defense and that game.
And he only had 4 carries. Like they didn't even want to use him. And I think Wilson was the only one who salvaged a decent game. Garrett, not Zach, because
Zach Wilson doesn't even want to give him a pass.
I was going to say because I think Jets fans are worried for sure whether their defense is looking legit, their offense looked like it could have been legit, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows unless Zach Wilson becomes like a Rex Grossman, then his defense carries him all the way, and he just becomes a very okay game manager. But even then, I don't think they're going to get there. So.
How bad do you have to be for Rex Grossman to be considered your ceiling?
Or very bad. Compliments to show how dominant that Bears defense was that year too. So,
All right.
Go ahead.
So so we're on wide receivers now. Why don't you start us off with your king of the catchers? Because
I'll tee it off. Let's start with T. Higgins, if you got that. We clowned on him just a little bit in week 1. He had a fat goose egg.
Homie went for 0.
Yeah, with eight targets his way. I mean, I know some of those weren't even catchable, but he looked pretty bad. Most people got him in the 2nd round. If you're, on average like a snake, I would just say a good expectation would be there. And if you were in auction, you definitely spent a significant amount of draft capital. Maybe not Jamar Chase significant, but he was in that
Top
next
20,
tier.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, he did well. So kudos to him. I have a couple shares of him. So I was glad to see that. Just honestly, a little bit more of the Bengals offense do something. I know Joey Burrow didn't look like the best, and they did, not get a win, but I mean, it is what it is. At least you got to see some fantasy points come out of that game for the Bengals.
And we'll see what goes on with Burrow. He re-injured his calf. I don't know what the plan is there. The Bengals are in a tough situation because they're 0-2, but they're also 0-2 in the division to start the year, which is tough. Burrow had that calf injury that kept him out most of 99% of the preseason and training camp, and he tweaked it again. You saw it on that last touchdown pass that he threw at the end of the game where he pulled up and it was ginger. You could tell it was hurting him. So, I mean, it's what do they do? It's one of those things where, man, if you sit him and you lose those games, you're in an even deeper hole. But if you play him, you're risking it. We saw it happen to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a calf injury in the preseason. 4th play of the game, snapped his Achilles. You don't wish that on anybody. I'm just talking the reality of the situation there. And
right.
that's tied to T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, basically, the whole team. What do they do there? Do they try to sit him for a couple weeks, get him back after the bye week, let him heal 100%? We'll just have to see and keep an eye on that. So, but yeah, T. Higgins definitely showed out this week after a very disappointing week 1. So my king for this week is going to be Mike Evans, who went off. And I think it was because I was playing against him in 75% of my leagues. That's my theory. But yeah, homeboy went off, 170 yards, long tutties. I mean, him and Baker Mayfield, as crazy as it sounds, seem to have a connection. Maybe it's because Baker has some of that Johnny Manziel in him, and Mike Evans
could be some of that noise that we heard. It could just be that noise. I mean, we didn't. We always forget that Mike Evans was a beast before Brady. Right?
True. Mike Evans has been a beast for a while.
Yeah, like the dude, I'm surprised. I mean, he's been doing it for 10 years. He's like a DeAndre Hopkins, but for one team. And he's been consistent. Like for a long time, he was like within
every season over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he's very good. That's a good call out. He looks to be consistent as long as he can stay healthy. I think he's also going to be a steal for draft capitals, whereas you got him ADP, in your round because I think he'll be good consistently. As far as jokers for the week, I would stay consistent. Some of the people we're talking about, we'll try to bring up some random people we never talk about, but just want to correct us when we're good and also mention, some things when we're off is Calvin Ridley. I kind of talked about his quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. He had a dud game. Calvin Ridley had a dud game. I really see Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver 1 or 2 in everyone's lineup this year. So to see him get, less than 5 points, that's not what you're looking for. It kind of hurt me in a few leagues where everyone else blew up except for my quarterback and him, and I ended up losing those leagues. But overall, he was a joker for me for this week, especially with the expectation from week 1 translating to targets too.
Yeah. And the thing with Calvin Ridley is, man, he was so close on a couple. He had, if the end zone.
Oh, that 1 foot, if it is like a 2 inches on that other one, he would have saved and he would have been in double digits.
Yeah. If the end zone was, instead of 10 yards, was 10 yards and like 6 inches, he would have had 2 more touchdowns, right? He had 2 that he was out of bounds on that were real close. So he was just that close away from being a king. But you see how thin the line is between king and joker. So, yeah, but I think he's going to bounce back. And also, again, he's going against the vaunted Kansas City defense, which are basically comparable to the 85 Bears. So, I can't knock him too much. But I think he's going to be all right. My joker is going to be A.J. Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's making some noise about I want more targets, and we get it, all wide receivers do. And he had a bad game, and you can see him getting frustrated. The reason he's my joker is man, you can't be showing up your quarterback like that. You did it in the playoffs. Now you're doing it here again. It's like, my guy, you used to play with Ryan Tannehill. Like, let's chill out a little bit. Like, you got Jalen Hurts, who was the runner-up for MVP, second team All-Pro last year. In the game, DeAndre Swift was literally, they couldn't stop him. Why are we going to stop taking, I think he was getting like 7 yards a carry. It's like, why would we stop doing that just to throw you the ball? We're trying to win this football game. So, yeah, I get it. And he's going to be fine overall. I don't think it's going to be like a TO with the Eagles problem. But it's like, my guy, appreciate what you've got and just know the targets are going to come. It's not that they don't hate you. They're not freezing you out. It's just Swift was playing so well that it would make no sense not to stick with it. So my joker this week is going to be A.J. Brown.
I like that. But it looks like his counterpart over on the other side of the field looks like a better, more value though. Devontae Smith, I think 2 games is looking like maybe the Eagles wide receiver to have on your roster.
The Slim Reaper.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Which transition to tight ends. I'll start with
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Did you have anything you wanted to add before we move to tight ends?
Yeah, I wanted to highlight one person here. If you listened to our episode last week, we told you to go pick up the Pookster.
The Pooks Nagoo.
Oh, yeah.
Pookie. Old Pookie. He had what, 147 yards, 15 receptions on 20 targets. I mean, right now he's leading the league in receiving.
He's a few yards. He's a few yards behind Justin Jefferson, but he's got the most catches if you're in a PPR league.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, there you go. Listen to what I tell you. Listen to what I tell you.
That was an easy. He made everybody look smart. So that was a good call out there.
And the thing about it, and who else is doing well is Tutu Atwell is also getting mad targets and putting it down too. So if you missed out on the Puka Sweepstakes, see if you can grab Tutu Atwell this week on waivers there too. But yeah. So
spoiler
shout
alert.
out. Yeah. Also spoiler alert. I mean, as much as we were right on Puka, I think almost all the fantasy experts were. So, I mean, yeah, it was great. But we'll keep coming back for more. Hopefully we get hits like that every week. So we'll keep you on posted.
We are fantasy experts. We literally are fantasy experts.
We're literally the fantasy kings. Like, crown us. We need to get a crown
of fantasy.
Yep. I keep saying I'm going to get a crown to wear on camera, and I keep forgetting. But we're going to get crowned up, bricked up, crowned up, all of
like
it.
Biggie Smalls. Let's go with a king for tight end. Nobody drafted this guy. I mean, after 10, and he's been consistently good. Hunter Henry. He went for 7 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown. So, and a PPR league, that's pretty good numbers. Half point, pretty good. Standard, still pretty good. Double digits for all of them. It looks like he's just always open and getting these calls. It's weird too, because sometimes you don't even see him, like, where is he? And then he'll be peppered with love, like a one.
Peppered with love. I was
with one
literally
series.
going to say that if you didn't.
And like boom, boom, boom. Yeah. So kudos to him. He's the king of the week for me. I think he's going to be also, in the hardest position to judge and predict. He might be the best.
He's a great flyer option, for sure.
He's looking good.
Because, Mac Jones, like you were saying, he's getting peppered with targets, peppered with love, and so far it's paying off. So we'll see. We've seen Bill Belichick and the Patriots offense function through tight ends before, with, Gronk, and then, that guy who won't be named because he murdered a lot of people. But yeah, so we've seen tight ends shine in New England. So we'll see how it keeps going. All right, so my king is going to be the Hawk, TJ Hawkinson, who is, just continuing to build on his strong end to last year once he got traded to the Vikings. Another big game for him. I think he might be a guy that makes me end up looking real dumb at the end of the year. We'll just have to see what happens, because I thought he was going to fall off a bit because the Addison and Jefferson, I thought that he wasn't going to get a lot of targets, but so far that hasn't been the case. So he's still holding up, target share wise, which is really nice. So shout out to Hawk, king of the week for the tight ends.
King of the week. As far as my Joker for the week, let's go with David Njoku. Man, I don't know what's going on with the Browns. RIP Chubb for the season as well. But now I'm kind of glad that I did not get all the shares in which I wanted to, because one, I don't have any shares of Deshaun Watson. He doesn't look that good.
Terrible. Looks terrible.
He does not look good. His throws are inaccurate. Amari Cooper, I mean, he has some plays and some drives where he looks okay, but I thought he was going to be a top 10. I don't think that's going to happen. David Njoku got paid. He's definitely one of the top 10 highest paid tight ends in the game right now. He's tall. He's freakish athletic, and he had 4 catches and a fumble. So you either got 1 point or 2 point or even 3 points, depending on like your league settings, potentially 4 if you're full point PPR. But yeah, he didn't look good, and I don't know why I hyped that guy or the Browns. But he's a joker for me. He does not look good.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, Deshaun, like what you were saying, Amari Cooper had some really nice plays. It was, he was making some nice catches, had some good yak going, but it's just one of those things where a lot of his targets were thrown 10 yards out of bounds. Right. So, Deshaun Watson is not looking good. Now
he's not like laser focused. He's not like consistently accurate either. You don't know if it's Elijah Moore or Donovan Peoples-Jones, the random people getting their work. It looks like, the person to have on that team is just going to be either, Ford or Cooper, and everyone else. I mean, you're just
for
prayers,
sure. And
Hail Marys over there.
For sure. And the thing is, you can't put that interception on Deshaun Watson, because it tipped off his buddies, off his guy's hands and taking back for 6. That's bad luck. Same thing, that happened to Mahomes in week 1. Mahomes hit Tony in the hands and it just bounced to the safety and took it back. So that's a bad luck break. But the sacks he was taking and the fumble return for 6 was 100% on him. And the inaccuracy is on him. And it's, I was thinking while I was watching that game last night, thinking back to when Deshaun was with the Texans, he would get away from those sacks. He was fast enough to where he would scramble, get out, make a defender miss, and then he had the talent back then to throw the ball downfield and get first downs, touchdowns, blah blah blah. But now I'm starting to wonder, and I mentioned this in the preseason, did all that time off? You can't simulate playing in the NFL. Believe me, if you could, I would, but I cannot. And so all that time off, if he lost just like a half a step, which it looks like he might have lost more off his quickness and his speed and his agility there, maybe Deshaun Watson from the Texans isn't coming back. That's a very real possibility. And if that's the case, the Browns have literally the worst trade and contract in the history of the NFL, and that's including the Russell Wilson debacle. So, yeah.
They kind of deserve it. If we're being honest, they kind of deserve it.
Yeah,
Watson always seems to have issues with other people's hands.
Indeed.
I've heard that before.
and he pushed a ref and didn't get tossed. Like, bro, what is it wasn't just like a little, he extended on the ref. And I was like, what is going on right now? Like, he's probably going to get a real big fine from the NFL today. But anyway, got to move on. My Joker, and we're gonna at the end of the year we're gonna come up with some awards, and we might have to end up naming the tight end Joker award after this guy, because Kyle Pitts is like consistently the Joker. Like, he should change his name to Heath Ledger. Like, Jesus, man. And I don't even blame him. I blame his coach. They drafted this guy top 5 in the draft, and let's just not throw to him. He's a freak athlete that can catch and is super fast. Let's use him as a blocker. Awesome. So Kyle Pitts, unfortunately, is my pick for the Joker. I feel bad for the dude, and the coach, knows, hey, we're winning games, so these guys don't care about their stats. I'm pretty sure they do. Like, you don't get, unless you're a quarterback, you don't get your next contract based off how many games you win. You get it off,
especially because
stats.
He was taken in the first round. So I
think he was the 4th overall.
Yeah, he was. The team invested in him heavily, but super glad I have 0 shares of him this year, 0 shares of him last year and the year before. So good call out there. So yeah, there's our kings and jokers for our primary positions there. A couple of honorable mentions that we brought up. There's always going to be some people that, are definitely a king in our eyes, as well as, other people's fantasies lineups, as well as jokers. But we just want to call out some of the people that we mentioned in particular. So what are your thoughts? You guys got anything, Peezy?
I thought trying to beat, but no thoughts from me. I enjoy this episode to take a look back and see, where we were right, where we were wrong, and, give shout outs to good players and negative shout outs to people who sucked.
I wish I would have stuck to my guns last week and kept Christian Kirk in the lineup. That was a mistake by me. I swapped him out for Cortland Sutton, and that was literally the difference in me winning and losing this week.
Oh, brutal.
Those are always a tough ones when it's the user manager error there. There's nothing that bothers you more like a splinter than when you could have prevented a loss, as opposed to knowing that you could have started your perfect lineup and you still would have lost and wouldn't have made a difference. Those ones are easy losses, but I feel you there.
That's why a lot of pussies play best ball. Best ball's for pussies. So are 10-team leagues. Grow up.
Yeah. Well, so good thing I play in majority of 12 or 14 the majority of the time. So
we're gonna get into some waiver wire here, guys. I'm gonna give you some names, each position, and you guys just pick that one guy that's gonna make a difference this week. All right.
Dibs on Ford.
From a quarterback, let's go with I got three guys here. CJ Stroud, rostered in 5% of leagues. I got Jordan Love in about 41% of leagues, and then Matthew Stafford still out there in about 72% of leagues. He's only rostered in 28.
Oh wow. I mean, so in that I'd have to go Stafford on that one. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Jordan Love. Jordan Love's not available in any of my leagues. So when I hear stats like that, sometimes I wonder if it's like, how. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not doubting the stats on that, but I want to know like the beyond number stats, because I'm sure there are 8-team leagues out there with no reason to have Jordan Love rostered. You know what I mean? Like, I think some of that is getting pulled from, because like even when you look at like a guy like Joe Burrow and you see the percentage like rostered in 99% of leagues, like, well, what league isn't he rostered in? Like, what is going on with that? So I'm not seeing Jordan Love, but Matt Stafford has actually impressed me a lot through the first couple of weeks. There was a lot of questions last year after his injury. He was having some elbow issues, and then Cooper Kupp went down, and the Rams are going to be terrible, and sky is falling. Well, let's slow the bus down on that for a second. The Rams are looking good. They lost to the 49ers, and the 49ers are a freaking freight train on defense. They still scored 23 points. Shout out to McVay for that backdoor cover. But I think Matt Stafford, I mean, it's one of those things where he's going to throw some picks, but he's also going to throw a lot of touchdowns and a lot of yards, especially when Cooper Kupp gets back. So if you're looking for a quarterback, I'd take Stafford from that one.
Yeah, well, he only has one touchdown so far this year, and that's without Cooper Kupp. So that's one thing you want to kind of put in your hat there.
For sure.
I like that analysis with picking Stafford there. I think I'm going to go Jordan Love, but I will comment that I think the PZ's right. I think more leagues do not have Jordan Love available now, but I do know that, I mean, in some of my leagues, he's available. So he's definitely there.
Then let's go and take Jordan Love out of the equation. Let's put this guy in here. Some that we mentioned. Well, here's one guy that we mentioned earlier in the show. Baker Mayfield, right? Like Joe Tessitore says it the best. Baker Mayfield. How about him?
Yeah, I'm only going to use Baker Mayfield. I'll just let all those fantasy points, just be jealous of not having them when he does good. And I'll only pick him up if I need a streamer or my QB is just doing consistently worst. But other than that, I'll look to pass on that. But he is going to be, at least, like a good floor for him now, at least from what we've seen in the two games. But I think Baker Mayfield, I mean, between those, him or Stafford, I'm going to go Stafford all the time. I think the Rams, just in general, everyone was a little bit down on. I think the only real highlight was everybody was just wanting Cam Akers and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp always had the injury lingering into the season. Some people were, straying away just in drafts that I was a part of. And you can just see his ADP fall once you got word that he wasn't going to start in week 1. Cam Akers was still solid around, between the 4th and 6th round, depending on your league and, if you were a fan of them. But, dude, the Rams look like they're legit. Looks like Sean McVay, might be doing something again. He's got some secret sauce over there, because he's got 2 wide receivers who are producing. They basically have the Cup doing with Pookie, and then they have Tutu with my man Bobby Trees.
And they'll have Cup coming back.
Yeah, and then it looks like this was my number 1 pick for the waivers last year is Kyren Williams, dude. He's looking solid there too. Anyone who started him definitely benefited and are super happy that they threw him in the lineup.
Yep.
Well, that goes right into the next one here. That goes right into running backs. Kyren Williams. Let's go Jerome Ford. And let's go with Zach Moss from the Colts.
So with that one, again, I don't think Kyren Williams is available in a lot of leagues. It's one of, I mean, he was a pretty big pickup last week because everyone saw the writing on the wall with the Cam Akers usage. So, but that being said, the answer, and no one's going to disagree with this week, is Jerome Ford, right? He's, prayers up to Nick Chubb, brutal injury. And honestly, Nick Chubb might be like the most well-liked player in the NFL, right? Like, no one has a bad word to say about the guy, and you just feel terrible for him because it's the same injury he had when he was at Georgia. And Jerome Ford looked pretty solid yesterday. He busted a huge run with like 66 yards. He caught a touchdown. He was involved in the pass game. So I think he's got a ton of upside. And, it's just one of those things where, everyone's going to be after him. You're going to have to decide. I think whoever has Nick Chubb, or who had Nick Chubb more accurately in your league, is going to be spending a lot of fab dollars if you're doing the fab. So, you got to be aggressive if you want to go get him, because
he's definitely going to be the number one claim, 1,000%, rightfully so. I think you're spot on. Williams was more last week, but some leagues deep, let's just say 10-team or 8-team leagues, maybe they left him, they forgot him, he might be available, but no one, I would say like 10% of teams maybe had Jerome Ford, and even if they did, that was just because they were probably Chubb owners. Yeah. So out of those ones, I would definitely say definitely target him. But I'm going to just throw in two guys here real quick that, you might keep your eye on. And here comes the bias again.
Roschon.
Looks like my boy Roschon Johnson from Texas. He looks almost better than everybody on that team as far as running. He hits the whole burst, and it looks like they're more in a split between him and Khalil. So just keep an eye on him. I think that's a good dude that could potentially, be a good addition, especially if anybody gets injured and he's just, launched into that, more course load by himself.
Yep.
How about Tyjae Spears? Someone kind of stash him. I mean, if history's going to tell us anything. If you have a larger bench, like, see, for example, the league that Collin and I are in, it's tough, man, because we only have 14 spots, right? So our bench is small, so you can't really stash players for later. It makes the waivers each week just an insane hellscape, right? But if you have a deeper league, then Spears is a guy you might want to bend, stash away for later, for two reasons. One, Derrick Henry's been hurt a couple times the last couple of years, so he's a great stash. But if Derrick Henry stays healthy, then I don't see Spears being a long-term answer.
Yeah, I think Craig Reynolds could be that guy. I think who am I missing here too? Just drawing a blank. Well, moving on. He must not be on my waiver list.
Big gulps, huh?
Well, see you later.
See you later.
All right, wide receivers. This guy is rostered in the data that I'm seeing here, rostered in about 43% of leagues. I've got Nico Collins. We'll go with Josh Reynolds from the Lions, rostered in about 2% of leagues. And let's go with a guy that I think a lot of people dropped after week one. Let's go with Kadarius Toney.
Young Joka.
Well, I'll just chime in. What buster leagues do not have Nico Collins rostered? He's like their number one. I drafted that dude last year, like the 14th or 15th round. But I would say if he's available, he's by far the best. And I think you can start him now. Looks like he's going to be the number one option.
Like a 10-12 target per week guy.
Yeah. And they even have with Tank, their wide receiver on the other side. He's getting some options, some looks his way too. I would say Josh Reynolds, though, is probably going to be your best bet, because I think that every league that I'm in, he's on the waivers. Josh Reynolds is not on anybody's team. So, I think right now between, what's available, I would go for him or Tutu.
So you want to talk about bias? Well, sit down, because I'm about to show you some bias. So the thing that worries me about Reynolds is that he's clearly got the number 2 spot locked down right now, right? He's clearly in there behind Amon-Ra, right? He's won that role. He's put up some good numbers. He's made some plays for him. The problem with that is how long is that sustainable for? Because when Jamison Williams gets off suspension, he was like the I think he was the 12th pick last year.
Yeah, they have high expectations for him, but high expectations don't always translate to production. So, but I think you're right.
It's going to cut into his snap share. It's going to cut into his target share. And if Jamison Williams is the dude he was at Alabama before he started losing his mind betting on shit, like that offense could be dangerous. And Sam Laporta, their tight end, is looking like the rarest of unicorns, which is a good rookie tight end for fantasy. Like that shit never happens. And so that's why I like the Reynolds pick for the next like 3 to 4 weeks. Because once Jamison Williams is back, I think you're going to see his production go off a cliff. And same with Nico Collins, ironically, because John Mechie is back. Now, John Mechie might take a little bit more time to get going, but he was also a high pick that they've got expectations for. Now, I think Collins is much safer than Reynolds. Obviously, he's still the number one, but how long will he be that number one? We don't know. So if I had to, now to be clear, I'm not, I don't Collins isn't, I don't think he's available in any of my leagues. I haven't looked.
He's not in mine.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick up Reynolds and I wouldn't pick up Kadarius Toney, but if you had a gun to my head and I had to choose one, I would actually go with Toney, because barring a trade, which I don't think the Chiefs are in a position to do to get a receiver in there, he's going to be getting looks. Now, he's always, he's never going to be the true number one, because that's always going to be Travis Kelce. But he got 5 targets last week. He had 5 targets on like 18 snaps. Once he gets, because he missed training camp too, so he's still building up to it. I know he had a horrendous week 1, but he could be a good stash player if you're in a deeper league, because he's still getting a high target share based off his snap count. And, Mahomes went right back to him. Like, Mahomes was like, hey, I'm not freezing you out. I'm going to feed you the ball still. You're still making playmakers. I mean, to be fair to Toney, the dude was a huge piece in the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. He had the touchdown catch, and he had the punt return down to the 5-yard line. So he's a guy that, he had a bad game. I mean, there's no getting around it. He was like the worst wide receiver grade in a week 1 or in a game for Pro Football Focus for like the last 20 years. But Mahomes went right back to him, and they're showing a lot of faith in the guy. So if I wouldn't pick up any of those guys, because I don't think there's any, as far as receiver goes right now.
But for our listeners who might not be as, an expert of you, they need to pick up somebody. So who are you going to say?
Well, if I had to,
I wouldn't pick up any of those guys. Well, they're available. Somebody's got to pick them up.
Well, but I mean, like, I wouldn't like drop. I don't know who's like a wide receiver. Like, I would rather have. And of course, I'm blanking on fools right now. But like,
how about someone like a Devontae Parker?
Yeah, like, so I'd rather, if I had Devontae Parker on my roster, I'd rather keep that person than to drop him and pick up Kadarius Toney. Or,
speaking of Devontae Parker, I mean, a waiver target you can actually go after is Kendrick Bourne. He's probably available in more than 50% of leagues. He didn't look as good in week 2 as he did week 1, but that's just a receiver.
Well, and that's someone that we highlighted for waiver wire last week, and he really underperformed this week. He had 5 points, if that?
Yeah.
Right. Still an available option though. But yeah, tough spot for running backs. As well as wide receivers. Always harder to project, but I think there's just a few this week that people are really going after. I think last week was more like a Thanksgiving, if you will. There is at least 4 or 5 positions that people were really looking to get that you can just insert in your lineup right away.
Cool.
We're going to go to tight ends here. We're going to talk about Logan Thomas from the Commanders, rostered about 1% of leagues. We're going to talk about Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys. And then one thing that we have We've already talked about one guy, right? Hunter Henry. He's rostered in about 53% of leagues. If he's available, that's going to be the guy that you're going to pick up. But here's one that's kind of a throwback, a little blast from the past. Zach Ertz, rostered in about 19% of leagues. Who are you picking?
The sound of youth. Let's go with Zach Ertz. Oh, I will take him all day long. It looks like him, Hollywood Brown, and James Conner is all the work in Arizona. They're going to be down a lot of games. They're going to lose a lot of games. So it's just going to be some stats their way as far as junk time. Maybe they're competitive in some of the games. But good call out, Zach Ertz. If I'm looking to pick someone up, I'm going after him. Then I need help there.
So give me who are the options again? I'm blanking.
Logan Thomas from the Commanders, who looks like he might be in the concussion protocol.
Yeah,
this
I
week.
think he's in protocol because he took a shot from that Denver safety.
Yeah, and then we have Jake Ferguson.
Held onto the ball for the touchdown, though.
Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys. You know the Cowboys love their tight ends, especially down in the red zone. So we got, let's just narrow it down to two: Zach Ertz and Jake Ferguson.
So I'd go with Jake Ferguson, and most Cowboy fans I know have loose ends. But Dak Prescott has had a history of making tight ends into fantasy stars.
Relevant,
not stars, but relevant. Yeah, exactly. And I think these guys, because I think Logan Thomas is actually a pretty good streaming option if you're streaming tight ends in the future. Now we got to see if he clears protocol, right? But Ferguson, I think he's a guy that is going to get some red zone targets. Dak has made it like his mission because he just got crucified last year. And hey, that's part of being the Dallas quarterback. You're going to get way more praise than you should when you win, and you're going to get way more blame than you should when you lose. But he got crucified last year by throwing those picks. And so and now again, to be fair to Dak, he didn't play bad in these two games. They were literally blowing both teams out, so he didn't have to make any tight throws. But he's been, it seems like he's going for the safer option. And a lot of the times the safer option is going to be the tight end. So I think you're going to see Ferguson getting some pretty solid target numbers. So I would go with him for this round.
Fair enough. I think that's going to wrap it up for the waiver wire.
Cool. All right. So I think, you know what, Collin? I want to add one more thing to the waiver wire. We'll just call it streaming defenses because that's what you and I both do. You got any defenses you got your eye on this week to stream?
Yeah, I actually just picked up Saints. I've seen them on a few of them. I see Jacksonville Jaguars out there.
Who are they playing?
Let me pull that up real quick.
Jacksonville has the Texans this week.
Yep. And I know a lot of people in most of my leagues, I don't think people are carrying Jacksonville Jaguars as far as the defense, especially coming off of playing the Chiefs. I think most people always just have, no fear with the Chiefs. I think that's why a lot of times they may not cover, heavy public favorite. But yeah, I'm looking to stream the Jags defense if I can get them. I think another team that I would potentially target if I could is the Titans. I mean they could be they look tough against the Chargers. So I mean we'll see. The Titans play the Browns. No Chubb. We'll see if Ford gets it done. And like I said, I think Deshaun Watson a little concerned about him. So I think if there's anything I can do, just like Billy said, I always like to just target weaker quarterbacks if possible. But good call out, Beezy. Who are you thinking?
So I'm gonna need you to go earmuffs. Kansas City Chiefs. They're playing the Bears.
They're definitely going to be a top three then.
Yes, and honestly, so it's one of those things where I think the Chiefs are a good streaming option, and I don't know how many leagues that this other team, my secondary team, the Patriots, are going to be available on. But if the Patriots are available, pick them up and start them immediately. They're playing the Jets, and Zach Wilson has thrown like a combined 80 interceptions against Bill Belichick defenses. So if you have the option, I don't think they're available because the New England defense is historically known as good and people take them. But if by some chance, because I'm seeing it where I'm looking, it's saying they're rostered on 69% nice of leagues. So if you're in one of those 31%, go get them and start them, because Bill Belichick is known for ruining Zach Wilson's life more than anybody else, which is pretty sick. But so those are the two teams. Like, one, I'm looking for New England, obviously off the bat. Assuming they're gone, I'm looking for Kansas City, just because they've got, Chris Jones is going to have another week of practice in. He's going to be in better shape. And, our young edge rushers, we've got Furious George Karlaftis and FAU coming in strong. They're looking good. So I think the Chiefs are a good pick this week.
Don't sleep on the Seahawks though. They're facing off against Bryce Young and the Panthers. So
yeah, and the Panthers have
that's
no
another
weapons.
that's another juicy one. That's a
They have
good call
no
out.
Weapons.
But I will insert this comment as we're wrapping things up for the episode. The co-host over here, we play each other this week. So hopefully all bad luck towards the Peezy. I mean, you're going down, so I can stay undefeated at the top. Just need to get to the second season and compete for that first round bye. See.
Do we need to have a punishment for whoever loses on the next episode? I think someone's going to be in like some sort of costume or something like that.
You're gonna have to rewind the tape. I know we did a year. Well, I'm pretty sure we did like a year competition that the losers gotta pay for dinner for us. The winner as well as the EP. EP is definitely gonna win on this bet, so it's win-win for him. But I'm definitely down, Peezy, if you want to throw a little friendly wager or real wager.
For sure. Well, how about we leave that open to the comments, and whoever has an appropriate and hilarious idea for the loser, we'll go with that. It's got to be agreed on, though. We're not gonna, you're gonna go tap dance naked on Central. Like we'll see what comments we get left, and we'll pick from that. So, what do you want to see Collin do in the comments? Because I guarantee, just like Joey Namath, I ain't losing.
How many points are you giving him though?
None.
What? Come on.
What does it look like?
What? No way.
I'll give him a point to D's.
Who has the spread right now? Let's see the projection.
He's actually favored by 10 right now, so he should be giving me 11.
Ooh, by 10?
Yep.
All right then. Well, bad luck still. Alrighty, fellas. Any last words, comments?
No.
Nope. We'll catch you next week. And just remember, when you play fantasy,
play for the crown.
We'll holler at you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Fantasy Football Kings. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at FFB_Kings or like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're available wherever you get podcasts. So don't forget to download, subscribe, review, and rate 5 stars.